everyone. So today I'm going to be telling you about the top 10 movies that you should be watching on Netflix. Of course, these movies are my opinion, and there's probably, you know, better movies out in Netflix that you should be watching, but because I cannot watch every movie on Netflix, even though I really want to, and I really try. There's probably going to be better movies. If you have any great movies that I did not mention here, feel free to put them in the comments below, because definitely want to know about them and I definitely want to watch them. Okay, so let's get started with the top 10 movies that you should be watching on Netflix. So number 1 movie that you should be watching on Netflix is called Pontypool, and Pontypool is a zombie movie, and this movie is not like any zombie movie I've seen before. It's actually pretty original. So the movie is set up in a radio station in the city of Ontario, Pontypool, where the main character, Grant Massey, the person that you see here, begins to get weird reports about what is happening in the city. And essentially people begin to repeat words, which is how the infection begins, and it builds up to them attacking each other. And they are instructed to stay inside, and the whole city is quarantined, and essentially the horror begins to build. Even though the movie does start a little bit slow, it builds up really good, and it's definitely intense and worth you checking it out. So go ahead, it's up on Netflix and go watch it. So the second one is called, this is not a horror movie, and this one is called God Bless America. Loveless, jobless, possibly terminally ill, Frank has had enough of the downward spiral of America. With nothing left to lose, Frank takes his gun and off the stupidest, cruelest, and most repellent members of society. He finds an unusual accomplice, 16-year-old Rotsy, who shares his sense of rage and disenfranchisement on society. Together, they go on a road trip and kill everyone who personifies everything that is wrong with today's American culture. Go watch it. Anyway, so the second movie is The Perfect Host. The movie is about a criminal on the run who cons his way into the wrong dinner party where the host is anything but ordinary. Injured after committing a bank robbery, the criminal, John Taylor, is desperate to find a place to hide out and approaches the home of Ward Wilson. John manages to get himself invited into the house by posing as a friend of a friend and spinning a sob story about how he lost his luggage in a violent mugging. Inside Ward, a consummate host, is making the final preparations for an impeccable dinner party. He insists John stay for the dinner party, but as the evening begins, it becomes obvious Ward may not be what he first appears to be. So go check it out, because it will definitely entertain you. So the fourth movie is Super 8. During the summer of 1979, a group of friends in a small Ohio town witnessed a catastrophic train crash while making a Super 8 movie, and soon suspect that it was not an accident. Shortly after, unusual disappearance and inexplicable events began to take place in town, and the local deputy tries to uncover the truth. Something more terrifying than any of them could have imagined is behind everything that is happening in town. So go check it out. It's awesome. So the next movie is not a blockbuster movie, but it does have a big cast, and the main person of this movie is Jim Carrey, and it's called I Love You, Phillip Morris. Steven Russell is happily married to Debbie and a member of the local police force when a car accident provokes a dramatic reassessment of his life. Steven becomes open about his homosexuality and decides to live life to the fullest, even if it means breaking the law. Steven's new, extravagant lifestyle involves cons and fraud and eventually a stay in the state penitentiary, where he meets sensitive, soft-spoken Phillip Morris. His devotion to freeing Philip from prison and building the perfect life together prompts Steven to attempt, and often succeed at one impossible con after another. So go check it out. So the next one is definitely a black comedy, and it's called The World's Greatest Dad. Lance Clayton is a man who has learned to settle. He dreams of being a rich and famous writer, but has only managed to make it as a high school poetry teacher. His only son, Kyle, is an insufferable jackass who won't give his father the time of day. Lance is dating Claire, the school's adorable art teacher, but she doesn't want to get serious or even acknowledge publicly that they are dating. Then, in the wake of a freak accident, Lance suffers the worst tragedy and greatest opportunity of his life. He is suddenly faced with the possibility of all the fame, fortune, and popularity he ever dreamed of, if he can only live with the knowledge of how he got there. Go check it out. The second movie, another black comedy. I have a ton of black comedies in here, okay. Anyway, so the second movie, they're just awesome. The second movie is Paperman. This is a coming of middle-age comedy that chronicles the unlikely friendship between failed author Richard Dunn and a Long Island teen who teaches him a thing or two about growing up, all under the disapproving eyes of his long-suffering wife and his imaginary superhero friend. Together, they discover that they have more in common than they previously thought and form a deep bond. And the next movie is not another black comedy. Finally, it's Grave Encounters. Lance Preston and the crew of Grave Encounters, a ghost-hunting reality TV show, are shooting an episode inside the abandoned Collingwood Psychiatric Hospital, where unexplained phenomena have been reported for years. All in the name of good television, they voluntarily lock themselves inside the building for a night and begin a paranormal investigation, capturing everything on camera. They quickly realize that the building is more than just haunted, it's alive, and has no intention of ever letting them leave. They find themselves lost in a labyrinth maze of endless hallways and corridors, terrorized by the ghosts of the former patients. They soon begin to question their own sanity, slipping deeper and deeper into the depths of madness, ultimately discovering the truth behind the hospital's dark past. Another movie that you should be watching on Netflix is True Grit. Following the murder of her father by hired hand Tom Chaney, 14-year-old girl Maddie Ross sets out to capture the killer. To aid her, she hires the toughest U.S. Marshal she can find, a man with true grit, Reuben J. Rooster. Maddie insists on accompanying Rooster, whose drinking, sloth, and generally reprobate character do not augment her faith in him. Against his wishes, she joins him in his trek into the Indian Nations in search of Chaney. They are joined by Texas Ranger LaBeouf, who wants Chaney for his own purposes. The unlikely trio find danger and surprises on the journey, and each has his or her grit tested. So go check it out. And the last movie that you should be watching on Netflix is The Hunger Games. In a dystopian future, the totalitarian nation of Panem is divided between 12 districts and the capital. Each year, 2 young representatives from each district are selected by lottery to participate in the Hunger Games. The 24 participants are forced to eliminate their competitors while the citizens of Panem are required to watch. When 16-year-old Katniss volunteers after her sister is selected, she and her male counterpart, Peeta, are pitted against bigger, stronger representatives, some of whom have trained for their whole lives to be there. So they fight to survive and to save their families. So go watch it. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!